Prime Minister has concluded his speech at the National Convention. We're joining you live from Ramlila Maidan, and you can see BJP leaders coming out. A host of cabinet leaders have come out from here, and this has been a two-day brainstorming session for the BJP. Three key resolutions passed in the last 2 days. One, a political resolution which was passed today, and yesterday was a resolution on farmers and one on poverty as well. Let's go across to Tuhin Sinha. Tuhin, of course, the Prime Minister and Amit Shah have set the tone for 2019. I believe we've lost that link with Tuhin Sinha. We would be coming back to him in just a bit. But both Amit Shah and the Prime Minister have set the ball rolling for 2019 elections. I believe Tuhin Sinha is back with us. Tuhin, just ahead of the Prime Minister's speech today, you had that Mahagathbandhan meeting in Uttar Pradesh. Doesn't that really worry you with the SP and BSP coming together? This was an experiment that had worked 25 years ago as well.
Well, first of all, am I audible? Am I audible?
Absolutely, go ahead.
So, first of all, this entire Mahagathbandhan now seems to be a Mahagathbandhan of people with very low self-esteem, because when Mayawati was asked about the 1995 guest house incident, she just shrugged it off. And for this new generation, let me remind them what happened. SP goons had basically, hurled the choicest of abuses at her, and she was saved by a BJP MLA. That is precisely what is going to happen now. Given the flip-flops which she does all the time, she will once again burn her fingers in all the trials and tribulations which she is doing, and she will eventually, she might as well come back to the BJP or want to come back to the BJP. But look at the Prime Minister's speech and the important point which he has made. On the one hand, you have a party and you have an alliance which is unselfishly working for the good of the country. And on the other hand, you have a set of people who are basically wanting to, work for themselves because they are faced with an existential danger. That is the difference between the BJP-led alliance and between the so-called Mahagathbandhan.
No, Tuhin, you might be saying that they're coming together because they are desperate for electoral gains, but that is how politics is. There are no untouchables in politics. At the same time, I would like to ask you about this battle within the CBI. Justice Patnaik, who supervised that CVC probe, has gone on record to say that there was no proof. None of the allegations were substantiated. All those allegations that were mentioned, and this entire complaint was based on what Rakesh Asthana said. And today, there are also reports that the CVC had gone to Alok Verma's residence to convince him to remove all those controversial remarks about Rakesh Asthana in his confidential report. Now, aren't these stories extremely damaging for the BJP, and why did they not figure in the discourse here at the National Convention?
Well, what has happened with the CBI is definitely unfortunate. But on 23rd October, the government had put in place a certain interim arrangement to address the issues. Now, after the Supreme Court judgment 3 days ago, when Mr. Verma was reinstalled, the least, and had been divested of major policy decisions, the least that he would have done was not go overboard with unnecessary and malified administrative decisions, which, he transferred some 5 people, got back some 10 people. Why, when you asked the government what was the daring hurry to have him removed, I need to, reverse the question and ask him what was the daring need to get into these decisions when he had merely 3 weeks left. What did he have to hide? So anyway, the High Part Committee set by the Supreme Court has taken its decision, irrespective of what new statements are emanating from Justice Patnaik or whoever.
Justice Patnaik has also said that this was a hasty decision. I would like to get a response from political analyst Manisha Priyam, who's also joining us on this discussion. Manisha Priyam, what are your thoughts about the road ahead for 2019 elections? The Prime Minister spoke at length. He spoke about farmers. He spoke about the state of the economy. And I think the entire debate this time and the campaign of the BJP would be a comparison of the work done during their tenure and to compare it to what happened during the UPA.
So I don't think people are going to compare this tenure with UPA tenure or that with, before that some United Front governments. Mr. Narendra Modi came in at a difficult time in the political life of this country. He came in on a wave of sentiments of anti-corruption, and he himself made a lot of promises very clearly The voting was done by the people of India on very clear promises made by him directly in over 550 speeches. People clearly remember what they voted this government in for. So the government will have to prepare and present a report card. That report card is something that Mr. Narendra Modi also presented today at the National Convention. He spoke about the achievements of his government. But what the people will see is whether the promises made are being fulfilled or not. Just unleashing new things, especially in the last moments of this government, Agra Arakshan Yojana, then Ayodhya Temple. Now, all those things are not going to lure the people. They're going to see whether this government is performing or not. And remember, notwithstanding any claims made by any political party, including the BJP, the Hindi heartland elections are critical. The BJP is not a party in the southern parts of the country, down the Vindhyas. It's not a political party of eminence there. So it's basically the performance in the Hindi heartland that matters as of now. So the road ahead to 2019 for the BJP, whatever grand pan-nationwide claims it may have, is based and premised particularly on its performance in the Hindi heartland, the three states that have seen the elections, and apart from that, the states of Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. Yes.
Absolutely, Manisha. Manisha, what I would also like to ask you about this economically weaker sections quota. In the last 2 days, every minister who has spoken here at the Ramlila Maidan has spoken about this and said that this is something that was needed for the poor, for the youth who were in the economically weaker sections in the general category. They have suffered. We brought this 10% quota not at the cost of existing OBC and SC/ST quotas. Do you think that this will be a game changer in the final lap?
So why, if this was the game changer and if this was the major promise that they thought they were fulfilling in terms of giving employment, why wasn't this done 4 years earlier? Because the road to implementation ahead is something where first it will have to be seen whether reservations can be given.
Manisha, I'd like to just request you to hold on for a second. Chaudhry Birinder Singh ji, we would like to ask you about farmers. The Prime Minister said no short-term strategies for farmers. We are working for a long-term strategy. Do you think after the defeat in the recent assembly elections, the farmers in the country are looking for a package? And you being a minister, sir, can you give us a direction this package is going to take?
No. You are talking of what package? Package doesn't mean remittance or just waiving of the loan. What we are doing, if we commit to this, that by 2022, the income of the farmers would be doubled. That means I am not an economist, but I know for certain that in this country's GDP will never come down below 10. So this is how, if we have a capacity to that extent, then naturally farmers would be what you call, he would be not asking for any remission.
Loan waiver. So you're saying no loan waiver, income support, increasing the income of farmers is the priority of this government. Are we, sir, looking at a package where the government would bring about a direct benefit transfer on the lines of the Raitu Bandhu scheme?
That should be the priority of the government. And what I think in the present system of procurement, we must look at this, that about more than 2 dozen crops have gone under MSP, and there should be arrangement by the state government. It is only Haryana and Punjab where this kind of procurement is available, where you have the liberty to sell entire crop of your with MSP system. But in the rest of the country, this is the requirement. Okay. And if it is required, then what you say about the direct transfer, then it would be possible.
All right. So you're saying direct benefit transfer is a good way ahead.
Yes, this is you know, when we quote it, we have saved about 70,000 crore rupees because of the DBT.
Okay. Thanks very much for speaking to us. So that was Chaudhry Birinder Singh speaking to CNBC TV 18. And Manisha Priyam, if I can come to you with that. There has been a lot of talk about a direct benefit transfer scheme on the lines of the Raitu Bandhu scheme. Chaudhry Birinder Singh reiterating what the Prime Minister has said, reiterating what Amit Shah and others have said, that there cannot be any loan waiver. But yes, we'll come up with a long-term scheme for farmers. Ravi Shankar Prasad, when he was speaking in Parliament, he said, "Ab dekhte jao, aakhri dinon mein hum chakke pe chakka marenge." Sources also telling us that every 15 days there would be this announcement. So do you think that this farmers package that is being worked upon will help the BJP electorally?
Once again, the same question. Did the strong government pan-India need to have waited for a Raitu Bandhu scheme done by KCR in Telangana for them to have come up with it today? What were they waiting for? Ab pachtaye kya ho? So the point is that when they have lost their incumbent state governments in Chhattisgarh, in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, do you think that this wisdom that comes when they are already in the poll mode, right, when seats are being decided, that's the time that they say, now we have a long-term strategy. So are you assuming that 2019 is also yours? If this was a long-term strategy, did you not have enough feedback from the farmers of this country, from the agriculture sector? What about your agriculture minister, Radha Mohan Singh? What are his views? What is his strategy? What was his ministry doing? And why were you waiting for a state government to succeed with Raitu Bandhu and then come back to you? So on everything, new promises every day, direct benefit transfer scheme. We've been hearing about it from day one of this government, that there is going to be a universal basic income scheme. Why today? Why not before this? In fact, the things that you did prior to this, you know, the GST you implemented, so many amendments it has gone through. So basically this government implements in haste, repents at leisure and makes new promises. Now what has to be seen is in 2019 whether the voter understands that promises made at the end of a government's tenure are to be taken seriously or not. If the voter thinks it's a very serious promise made by the government, then they will vote for the BJP.
Implements at haste, the BJP government implements in haste, repents at leisure. That's the quote coming in from Manisha Priyam. Gunja Kapoor, just to get you in on that, do you also feel that these last minute promises, they should have happened much earlier, and electorally people are very wise?
No, see, Parikshit, there are two things. Every time it is he starts the incumbent and in its mind. So I think it's rather uncharitable. Right. That also let me.
Okay. Gunja, I think we're witnessing some poor audio there. I'll try and correct the line, but let me get in a word from Tuhin Sinha. Tuhin Sinha, very strong words from Manisha Priyam. And that is a valid question. If you knew that this was the problem for farmers, if there were issues with the Kisan Credit Card Loan Scheme, if there could have been better implementation of the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Yojana, there could have been a direct benefit transfer scheme, why was all this not done earlier?
Richard, first of all, let me dispel this misconception that the government has not done enough for the farmers. On the other hand, we have done the maximum possible to increase the farmers' income. Because if you look at it, at the core of most problems was the fact that in the past, most of those strategies were focused around increasing farm outputs, and there wasn't adequate focus on increasing farmers' income. Number one, we have increased the MSP by 1.5 times on all mandated products starting this year. Number two, if you look at the kind of infrastructural advancements which have happened both in the irrigation projects as well as the rural road development schemes, all of that are aimed at bringing down the input cost for the farmers. At the same time, there have been technological upgradations, storage facilities have increased, Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana has been put into place. So there are several steps which we have taken. But yes, we also need to acknowledge that these steps haven't sufficed. No, let me just give me 30 seconds. Now, the rural real wages have not increased commensurately or have not increased at all. So in this situation, as a responsible government, would we not go to the next level and take the next steps and just be assured of what we've done? That is precisely what we are doing now. So in the next week or 10 days, if you see a universal basic income.
Okay, all right. Tuhin, just stay with us. You're saying that a lot of work has happened in the past, and it's not fair to say that all of this is happening just in the last 3 months ahead of elections. I believe we have a Samajwadi Party spokesperson with us, Nasir Salim. He is joining us on the phone. Nasir, agar main aapse jaan sakta hoon, we're hearing now that that the Gathbandhan in UP is a done deal, 38 seats each. You are being very respectful towards the Congress party. You're giving them 2 seats, no Gathbandhan with the Congress, because this has not helped you electorally in the past. The Prime Minister has spoken that this is a Gathbandhan of desperation. All parties, including Samajwadi Party and the Bahujan Samaj Party, had come up as opposition parties to the Congress, and today they are all getting together. And this is only for electoral gains. There is no ideology, no vision for the people, the poor or the farmers. How do you react to that, Nasir Salim?
Well, I must tell you, I heard your question. Firstly, let me dispel the truth. The truth is that, as far as the Samajwadi Party is concerned, whether it was, in the bygone assembly elections recently, we were trying to understand the arithmetics, and obviously we were kept out of way by the Congress Party, and we respect that. And similarly, in the same way, we've not disregarded or disrespected the Congress Party. We've kept very much their arithmetic in place, and we've given them 2 seats simply because there is an arithmetic caste-based number that is being followed for Uttar Pradesh. Now, coming to the point on why caste-based and if it's an alliance of conveniences, firstly, it's not. But
she said clearly that the Congress Party is also responsible for corruption. Both the BJP and Congress are responsible for corruption. Congress for Bofors, BJP for Rafale. So there is no question of respecting the Congress here. I think Mayawati was rather scathing.
I tell you. No. Let's first address your question. Your question was very simple. Whether Congress is part of the alliance or not, and we've only given them 2 seats. That's what you're trying to insinuate. We've given them respectfully 2 seats simply because there is a caste-based arithmetic that favors them in Uttar Pradesh. Similarly, like the way in Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan, the other 3 states, a certain number didn't support us. We were kept out of the alliance by them. Similarly, it's the same situation in Uttar Pradesh now. Having said that, I want to tell you, now talking about the caste-based arithmetics, we must thank the BJP for actually bringing this in. It's very easier said than done by saying that, this is a convenience of alliances of convenience. But let me tell you, it's the BJP today which is formed the NDA with more than 47 alliances all over the country. And we have to give cognizance to that. And when it comes to them, they start putting fingers at us and saying this is a matter of convenience and so on and so forth. Coming to the vision part, which you mentioned, I must tell you, if you notice in the last 12 years of government, 5 of the BSP, and thereafter 5 years of the SP government, it is only during our governments that actually the Uttar Pradesh as a state had recorded the highest number of GDP as compared to the national average of the entire nation. And this is data which is verifiable. You can please have this looked into your records. And the last 2 years in Uttar Pradesh, specifically with the BJP
Nasir, I'm going to request you to hold on for a second. I'm going to get a response from a BJP spokesperson to that. Shazia Ilmi, thanks for joining us. We would just like to ask you for your response. Nasir Salim of the Samajwadi Party is with us, and he's saying that this is not an alliance of convenience. Samajwadi Party had actually done better for Uttar Pradesh than the BJP has done. The GDP growth of Uttar Pradesh was much better. And this is not just about a caste arithmetic.
I have a very simple question for this gentleman who represents Samajwadi Party. If they were doing so well, what is the need for them to desperately go with somebody they've hated for decades? So what is the desperation? Was the work not enough? Was the caste alliances not enough? Or was Modi magic too much? Was the fear of Modi factor too much? I think he's not being entirely honest. Had they really had they done something good for UP, they would not have to huddle together with a party they have abused for the longest period of time.
But Shazia, every minister who spoke in the last 2 days has spoken about the Mahagathbandhan. Isn't this because that there is a worry that in the days to come, this will be a political force to reckon with, and probably this will be a challenge? If everyone gets together, especially in a state like Uttar Pradesh, it becomes difficult.
So we spoke about the Mahagathbandhan, we spoke about all the work that has been done by us, we spoke about the difference between a Mazboot Sarkar and a Majboor Sarkar. And when we talked about a Majboor Sarkar, we talked about all these unholy alliances which are not bound together by any vision, by any ideology, by any common interest, but a fear of Modi ji, a fear of a party that is really topping the charts when it comes to fighting corruption and actually delivering.
All right.
So I think it's more to do with that than anything else.
Okay, thanks very much, Shazia, for talking to us. So, Nasir Salim, that is the BJP answering you, saying that if the Samajwadi Party had done so well, then why are they aligning with the BSP? Why are they compromising on their ideology and going and aligning with the BJP, with the BSP?
Okay, so let me. I heard the lady on the phone from the BJP, and obviously she has no background to anything with regards to UP because she didn't know anything that she was saying. I must confess to you, and I'm sorry I'm being personal at this, but that's a fact. Having said that, let me tell you, firstly, as far as our work was and vision was concerned, we obviously could not communicate that to the ground level. We agree to that. But having said that, who is the one who came in and broke caste-based arithmetics in Uttar Pradesh, if I may ask. You're the media. Please play up all of those that came up in terms of speeches led by the Prime Minister then in 2017 during the assembly elections. And what was our ideology then? What was our narrative then? Our narrative was Kaam Bolta Hai. We said, let's talk about development. Let's talk about the vision of the execution of good work that we've done in the last 5 years while we were in government. What was the BJP doing, if I may ask? They brought Shamshan Ghat. They got Ram Mandir issues. They went and they did divisive politics. And now, when we have aligned on a certain caste-based arithmetic because of them, they forced us to do it only because of and we have a common vision program, let me tell you. As I told you in the beginning of my discussion with you, if you see the highest number of growth achieved has been during the BSP and the SP regime. Now, obviously, you might come back and say that, this is all factual information. And therefore, the ideology of a common vision program for development of the largest state is the need of the hour. And we need to ensure that the country needs a decisive...
I'm going to come back to you because we have a BJP spokesperson now responding to you. You know, the Samajwadi Party, we have a Samajwadi spokesperson online, sir, and he is saying that this is not just a caste-based arithmetic. They have a common program that they're going to be working on. And what is the BJP's ideology? They have been trying to break people on the basis of caste. They've been playing communal politics. Politics for them in Uttar Pradesh is just about the Ram Mandir.
It's so laughable, you know. People who have joined hands only with the motive for the common hate for Narendra Bhai. If that's the ideology, so be it. If the agenda is he will decimate us, so let's join hands to fight him, so be it. So if they say we will have a program but that we'll decide later, speaks volumes of the absurdity of what is being said about us. All I know is there is a Hindi शेर, दो और दो का जोड़ हमेशा चार कहाँ होता है. सोच समझ वालों को थोड़ी नादानी दे मौला. I think they need to be slightly more nadan to be pragmatic.
You know, sir, one question that we'd also like to ask you. The Prime Minister said that the Congress and the UPA have tried to undermine institutions like the CBI, the Enforcement Directorate, the RBI in the past. But even this government has been accused of misusing the CBI, misusing the RBI. And we've seen this entire tussle between Alok Verma, Rakesh Asthana playing out. It's still not ended. Don't you think that should have figured in the discourse?
I think after the judgment, after the decision by a judge along with the Prime Minister, this needs to be settled.
But you know, Justice Patnaik, who was heading the CBC panel which probed this, said this was a hasty decision and there was no evidence.
Let me explain this. A former judge is not equivalent to a sitting judge, and Justice Sikri happens to be a sitting judge.
But he was monitoring this probe.
So he said, I am not monitoring the probe. I am only sitting there overseeing it. It's not my opinion, it's not my investigation. So it's the wisdom of the judge who's sitting that counts more.
Okay, thanks for speaking to us, Sudhanshu Trivedi. So that was Sudhanshu Mittal of the BJP speaking to us. But let me come back to you, Nasir Salim. What will be the key issues for this alliance in Uttar Pradesh? How will you go into battle? Because the BJP says that our focus will be on vikas, vikas and vikas and the achievements and the schemes of the Narendra Modi government.
You see, I'll tell you, firstly, we need to go back and I'll tell you what the vision is and what will be the agenda. Firstly, we need to look at the current state in Uttar Pradesh and see what is hit hardest. There is a impending farmer distress issue, which we need to fix immediately. There is a huge unemployment caused due to some of their policies such as demonetization, which has caused multiple industries in the small scale sector which have shut down. That is the need of the hour. Then thirdly, we need to ensure that the development of infrastructure projects that was started during 2007 during BSP and then the SP, which we continued, needs to be also pushed further to ensure that there is overall infrastructure development which will provide an employment opportunity for the residents of Uttar Pradesh.
Okay.
Fourthly, we need to ensure that we give support.
Nasir, I'll request you to hold on. I'll get in Manisha Priyam. Manisha Priyam, thank you very much for waiting patiently. Over the last few days, we've seen this battle within the CBI also escalating. Alok Verma is now out. He's resigned as an IPS officer. Justice Patnaik, who had supervised the CBC probe, has gone on to say that this was a hasty decision and there was no evidence against Alok Verma. In fact, there is also a news report which says that the CBC had gone to Alok Verma's residence to request him to remove controversial notings about Rakesh Asthana from his confidential report. Do you think the BJP did not speak about this at the convention, but do you think this is a matter that will be raked up in the campaign and somewhere it could hurt the BJP's chances or not at all?
I disagree with the eminent panelist from the BJP who spoke just before, and he said Sikri is higher than Patnaik because Patnaik has retired. What needs to be remembered that Justice Sikri was on this committee of the select committee of the Prime Minister, not simply as a serving judge, but also in his eminence as a justice. And remember, an honorable justice of the Supreme Court, Justice Patnaik, who was a part of this process, his speaking out today is extremely important. I would not have said this. I have been on record to say that we must accept the verdict and the wisdom of a committee which has an eminent justice on it. But this coming from Justice Patnaik is something very serious, and it's likely to be raked in because, you know, as a citizen, I have no way of understanding this except through the voice of the judiciary. And Justice Patnaik saying that the CBC report did not put any evidence across as far as Alok Verma is concerned. As a citizen, I'm going to take that wisdom coming from Justice Patnaik as very, very important. Remember, Justice Patnaik was an impartial nominee put there at the wisdom of the judiciary. So his position is similar to that of Justice Sikri, and I think it's extremely significant today. As a citizen, I would now see Justice Sikri's opinion expressed on the committee along with the voice of Justice Patnaik. I'm going to read these two together, and certainly in the days to come, it will become an issue for the partisan political parties to rake up. But more seriously, I'm extremely worried at the manner in which my important organization called the CBI has been handled. As a citizen, law and order is something that is granted to me as a right as a citizen, and the government has no business interfering and trying to turn these bodies into partisan bodies, if at all this has been done. And today I will read Justice Patnaik's statements along with that of Justice Sikri's actions on the committee.
All right. You know, Manisha Priyam, I'd like to ask you about demonetization as well, because I was here for the last 2 days, and correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't hear the word figuring anywhere as such. So do you think that somehow the BJP wanted to ignore it altogether?
Yes, it's not something with which they can go back. You know, they've claimed in political circles that demonetization led them to win the referendum of UP. I think the referendum of UP was won on certain incompetence of the then incumbent government, the fights within the political party on the family feuds that were going on the sidelines, and definite corruption charges that were there on the ground. But having done all that, I think the results that you've seen in the 3 states definitely point out that there was, the impact of demonetization has led to some amount of slipping away in Mufassal economies. Places like Indore, places like Surat have been hotbeds against demonetization, against the way in which the GST had been implemented in a hasty sort of way. And I think that's a burden that the BJP does not wish to take on. It wants to move away from the anti-incumbency that exists, especially amongst the local trading classes, which have been voters of the BJP for a very long time, a solid vote bank with the BJP. And definitely the move to simplify the GST has been done to, somewhat mitigate the anger of this class. Hopefully that does the trick for the BJP. At least it gets its core votes back. So demonetization and GST are something on which the government is not going to harp too much. We're going to bring in also the anti-sentiments of the trading classes, which have been such loyal supporters of the BJP as long as we've known the party to exist in the Hindi heartland.
Broadcast from the Ramlila Maidan in New Delhi. We are tracking reactions to the BJP's national convention. Joining us right now is BJP MP Udit Raj. Mr. Udit Raj, पिछले 2 दिन में we have heard a lot of conversation about the economically weaker sections quota that was brought in.
Exactly.
It got support in Parliament. It has been passed by Parliament. But everybody is asking, why was this big, massive constitutional amendment brought in without anybody knowing it? In fact, there is also a parliamentary question which reveals that Thawarchand Gehlot had said that he wasn't aware about this. And this parliamentary question was just a few hours before the bill was brought in Parliament.
See what happened and justifies everything. Now they have got a reservation of 10%, weaker section among the upper. and that is a good job, that is a welfare job. Let us look at that. In fact, what is needed is that to empower them, and that has been very old demands. Now it has been conceded. At a very fast speed it was done, and of course there are people are questioning that why at the fag end any good thing never let then begin. It has begun, it has been done, and in a lightning speed it has been done.
You think it will be a master stroke for the BJP?
Certainly.
Okay. Thanks very much, Mr. Udit Raj, for joining us. Sandeep Shastri, thanks very much for being with us. You know, Udit Raj feels that this will be a master stroke for the BJP, the economically weaker sections quota in the general category that was brought in. The Prime Minister spoke about it, Amit Shah spoke about it, Nitin Gadkari spoke about it. Every minister who spoke at the Ramlila Maidan mentioned this as a game changer, as a master stroke for the BJP. Do you think that this will translate into electoral gains? And also, what do you think about this policy? Ravi Shankar Prasad had said that every few days there'll be a chakke pe chakka. So I think in 15 days we'll hear something for traders. In another 15 days we'll hear something about farmers. Will this really work on the ground now?
For a long time, people were talking about whether the government would indulge in some surgical strike to be able to give support. I think in a sense this is an attempt at a surgical strike at the opposition to try and steal from the opposition which was one of their favorite agendas, which did not allow in any way the opposition to oppose it in Parliament, and only add, however, kintu parantu in all the support that they gave. Having said that, I must also add that the economic reservation criteria which they have now come up with would still take some time to actually come to effect, and I'm not too sure whether that will be possible before the elections happens. So it will still be a promise on the part of the government which I'm not too sure can actually be implemented on the ground. And let's also remember that this may not necessarily be a major issue across the country. It could be an important issue in some states of North India, especially states like Uttar Pradesh. Because if you come to the south, if you come to states like Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, already 94% of the population is already under the gamut of reservations. So I think this could have some impact in certain segments of society in terms of support, but then it will continue to be a measure which will not be implemented before the election.
All right, and Sandeep Shastri, you're a well-known psephologist. We'd like to ask you about the alliance that we are seeing in Uttar Pradesh. This alliance is coming together after 25 years. Mayawati, Akhilesh saying they're very sure about uprooting the BJP from Uttar Pradesh. 80 Lok Sabha seats, and if this alliance succeeds, they could really disturb the BJP's apple cart. What do you feel?
You see, this alliance has the potential of changing the nature and structure of electoral competition in Uttar Pradesh. But let's remember one more point. While the political arithmetic may be in their favor, if we were to simply add the SP and BSP votes, it would be formidable, and it would be a very serious challenge to the BJP and the BJP's capacity to retain the seats it has in UP. While political arithmetic is important, I think we cannot forget the fact of ground chemistry. Will the BJP and SP workers at the ground level be able to work together, especially after so many years when your principal rival was the other party? And secondly, will the vote transfer happen? So I'm talking of two different chemistry issues at the ground level. The workers of the two parties collaborating with the ones who they have traditionally opposed for quite some time now. And number two, will those who are committed voters to each of these parties be willing to switch to the other party wherever necessary on the instructions, on the directions, on the persuasion of its leadership? Now, this would be a critical question, and I think and a lot of this would depend upon how Akhilesh and Mayawati actually take this alliance at the ground level, how they are able to convince their supporters to actually transfer the vote to the other party, as and where the candidates of the other party is there in the field.
Right. You know, Sandeep Shastri, one more question that I'd like to ask you. what do you think will be the key issues that will decide this election? You know, 2014 was a personality contest. There was an anti-Congress, very strong anti-Congress sentiment. It seemed that there was no alternative to the Prime Minister at that time. Do you think that such a situation still exists, or things have changed considerably? Rahul Gandhi has been portrayed very aggressively by the Congress as their leader, as the Prime Ministerial alternative to Narendra Modi. But that is not acceptable to the Mahagathbandhan, to everyone in the Mahagathbandhan.
I think both the BJP and the opposition are going to have different priorities as they go into the election. I don't think there is a shadow of doubt that the BJP would like to make their Prime Minister and his leadership the centerpiece of their campaign. If you look at their latest slogan which they have come up with, it is Saaf Niyat Sahi Vikas is their slogan. So Achhe Din is no longer their critical slogan. Their critical slogan is Saaf Niyat and Sahi Vikas, under the leadership of their Prime Minister. So very clearly the entire BJP effort in the next election would be towards projecting their Prime Minister and his leadership. On the other hand, I think the UPA, its supporters and the state-based parties, I'm talking of two groups here, the UPA and its supporters on the one hand and other state-based parties on the other. Now they are likely to make
Shastri, I'll request you to hold on for a second. Ms. Rajay, we'd like to get a word from you.
Well, I'm getting...
Just a final take on what the... All right, I think Vasudha Rajay is on her way out from the National Convention. Sandeep Shastri, sorry to disturb you. Please continue. You were telling us about
what I was saying
the
is, on the
personality
one hand,
contest
the
in this
BJP
election
is going
and
to...
how the BJP has changed its line.
Yeah, I'm saying on the one hand, the BJP is clearly going to go into this election under the, with the leadership of the Prime Minister as their central focus. On the other hand, I think the two major groups within the non-BJP segment, the UPA and its allies on the one hand and the state-based parties on the other, they are, I believe, consciously not going to focus on the leadership issue, because the moment they focus on that, it's not a race which is very easy for them to win. They are trying to focus the issues more on policy alternatives. They are trying to focus the issues more on what they would see as the unfulfilled promises of this government. So I think there are going to be very different strategies which the BJP would adopt as it goes into this election, and the UPA and the state-based parties would adopt. And I think it will be interesting to see how these two strategies play out and which one seems to attract the attention of the voter much more.
Okay, Sandeep Shastri, thanks very much for speaking to CNBC TV 18. It's going to be a very interesting battle. It'll be a hard-fought contest, and all eyes now on Uttar Pradesh and all the states that will witness this massive election in the weeks to come. Thanks for watching.